Hey friends, Brian Hofen here. Wanted to shoot a short video. I hope it's short. We'll see where this goes. Regarding your Always Ready kit. Pastor at Hopeton Church has been talking about make sure that your ARK is ready. And at Hopeton Church, that's our, I guess, a code word for Always Ready kit. And you might ask, what is an Always Ready kit? Before we jump into that, several things pastors mentioned in recent days has talked about being ready or be prepared for possibly some disruption or something going on in the whether it's the economy or with society or with politics or any of the things that go on in the systems in America. There's just a lot of unrest in America, and we know that Satan's behind all of that, but there's just a lot of groups that think that maybe they're doing right, or they're promoting a cause, or there's just lots of reasons and things. And without getting all tangled up in the politics of it all, the point of the video is to talk about the Always Ready kit. But we do have to talk just a little bit about some different things that could happen. What if trucks in our society didn't roll for a while? We kind of saw that a little bit with COVID when it first came out, and rushes on stores for items like toilet paper. But that could happen with any item, and it could happen at any time. Stores are prepared for a nice, constant, even flow of merchandise out the door as the trucks arrive at the dock in the back. And if anything disrupts that, whether it's the trucks arriving or the nice, even flow out the door, like civil unrest or something happened that caused people to make a run on a store, things become unavailable. So that's just a simple reason for an Always Ready kit. There's other reasons. In recent days, there's some folks that in a Colorado town went and attacked some gas lines, and the whole town had no heat till they got the gas lines repaired. And those folks were promoting, I think, environmental issues and things like this. So anyway, we wanted to talk a little bit in this video about your Always Ready kit. 1,000 reasons, 1,000 things that could happen. What if you didn't have heat? What if you didn't have electricity? What if the cell phones didn't work for a few days? What if Walmart ran out of stuff? What if your water didn't come on when you turned the faucet on? There's just lots of things that could happen, and it could be a cause of some group or some other event going on that has a trickle effect. Typically out here where we are, that trickle effect can be delayed. Some of the larger metropolitan areas, they experience the impact almost instantly. So it just kind of depends on what we're talking about, and how well or how far you want to prepare. Some people feel like that they don't need to prepare at all. I would strongly discourage that. You need to be able to survive in your home for a minimum of 2 or 3 days. The federal government says 2 weeks that you need to have supplies in your home for if you couldn't get out or there were none available. So that's just your own federal government saying, hey, you need to have enough stuff for 2 weeks. So that's where we're going to start here with, is our minimum ARK is 2 weeks. And I've got a list made here. You'll see me referring down to that. We'll also do some screenshots of some other items in this video. So let's get started. Okay, so we're back and we're talking about our Always Ready kit. A basic Always Ready kit should have in your home food for 2 weeks. Now we'll talk more about food in a minute, but I'm going to go through just the items that you need in your kit. You need to have water for each individual in the home for 2 weeks. Now, that's a lot of water. We'll talk about that a little more detail in a minute, but I'm going to say you need to have water or a way to filter water that may not be clean for each individual in the home for 2 weeks. You need to have medications. Always have at least, don't run your prescriptions all the way to the very end. Get them refilled before you're out. And you need a communication method. And a communication method will go into more detail. That doesn't have to be something crazy, but we'll talk about that. Basic first aid supplies, some extra fuel, and one set of PPE for everyone in the home. PPE is personal protective equipment, whether that's just a mask, or it's a mask and gloves, the mask, glove, and goggles, or even a Tyvek suit. That's all up to you, but that's the basic set of things that you need in your home, in your ARK, and 2 weeks worth for every soul living in your home. Now, to back up a little bit and talk about those things in that list, let's talk about food for a minute. Food can be dried food, it can be freeze-dried food, canned food, stored dried goods, something in your freezer, something in your refrigerator, canned goods in your cabinet. All of these things are suitable, but you need to have 2 weeks worth. Now, when we talk about 2 weeks, that's not a huge requirement. A lot of people probably have that. However, a lot of people I know can't go more than 2 or 3 days without going to Walmart. So think about, for 2 weeks, do I have everything I need to cook every meal, or have some nutrition for everyone, each soul in the home, every person in the home? Do I have 2 weeks of food? And when we get into food and food storage, there's several different methods of having food in your home. Obviously, fresh bread's only going to last so long. Milk and eggs and cheese, these things only last so long, and that's with refrigeration. What if the scenario you're preparing for is a power outage, a long-term one, like multiple days? We've had that happen. I think in 2000 we had an ice storm and didn't have power for several days. What's your plan there to keep food cold? If it's in the winter and an ice storm, stick your milk in a snowdrift, you're good to go. But if it's in the middle of summer, what are you going to do? So those are things that you need to think about when you talk about food prep and food storage. Dried foods are a great choice and a way to go. Many places offer it. There's lots of ways to get it. There's whole meals that are pre-prepared that are dried food. These tend to be a little bit expensive. It's not something you'd want to have 7 years worth of, but it is something that is an option for you. Freeze-dried food is even better. You get into a situation where you're looking at freeze-dried food. This is typically food in number 10 cans. It's been vacuum sealed, it's been nitrogen packed, and this stuff is going to keep for 20 years. So this is not something you'd have to rotate out through your pantry or through your cabinets. This is just food that you can set aside, put away, and know that it's going to be good for 20-25 years in the event of a difficult time. So dried food and freeze-dried foods are good choices and a good way to go for long-term storage. Canned foods are okay. We do that a lot around here. And canned foods are good for 1, 2, 3 years. And they maintain a lot of the nutrition that's in the food. The best nutrition is freeze-dried food. The next best is dried, and the next best is canned. So canned food is a choice. You can can your own food, or you can buy canned food. Obviously, we do in the store. We have cans of vegetables and pickles and all these different things that you can get pre-canned. Many of those items have expiration dates on them, and those expiration dates have been selected and they're mandated by like the FDA and different food and drug folks for best freshness. A can of corn that would typically only have an expiration date of a year or 2 years probably can be actually still edible 3, 4, and 5 years down the road. Obviously, you'd want to check it, make sure it smells right, cook it well, but expiration dates on canned goods are just, they're suggestions by different agencies that force the canners to put that date on there. You don't necessarily always have to go by that. Obviously, it's the most safe thing to do is to go by those expiration dates. I would encourage anyone, if you keep corn and beans and things in your pantry as canned goods, when you go to the store, buy your new ones, put them at the back, eat the cans of food off the front, keep a rotation going on any items like that so that you always have the freshest at the back and the oldest at the front. You're using your older products, and that makes you in a good situation if you have a long-term need for food. So anyway, food, that's in your always ready kit, 2 weeks. These are minimums that we're talking about here. Water or water filtration. I want to flip over to if you live in a urban, a city, a place not out in the rural areas, but it's likely that you're on a municipal water supply. And a lot of times we sometimes can have a little bit of a heads up if we know water is going to be short. Sometimes they'll tell us. Sometimes we know that if the power's been out in the area that I'm in, that you usually know within 12 to 24 hours your water pressure is going to start decreasing, and then there's not going to be any not too long after that if they don't get something fixed. So a choice for you, and we'll cut to a screen here, would be, this is called a water bob. It's a little package in a box, has a little pump with it. It's $40. Most bathtubs hold about 100 gallons. So this would be an easy choice if you were going to have to store water and you don't have a way to filter, or you don't have a well. You're 100% dependent on municipal water supply. That's a good way. The bob is a good way to put up 100 gallons of water in a tub. You got a couple bathrooms, you could put up 200 gallons. So they have the different bags for the different size tubs. If you have a hot tub, they even have ones for those. So that's just something that's a suggestion. Another choice is a water filter. Maybe you would have access to water. Maybe you have a creek or a pond or a water source on your property, but it may not necessarily be potable or drinkable. Berkey water filters are the best of the best. They're an all stainless steel filter. They have ceramic and charcoal filters inside that are replaceable. They're cartridges. And the Berkey filters, this is, they call this one the Royal. There's an Imperial, I think, that's a bigger than this, and they go all the way down to 1 gallon. This one is 3.25 gallons. But the Berkey filter will let you pour in pond water, and what comes out the spigot at the bottom is completely clear, organism-free, bacteria-free, completely safe drinking water. Obviously, the dirtier the water is that you pour in there, the longer the cartridges are going to last. But the Berkey's made to just set it up when an event is going on, put it on your kitchen counter, fill it up with whatever water you're able to get, and what comes out is going to be good, fresh, clean water for cooking and drinking only. But that's a choice and an option in an always ready kit for water. One more choice would be a life straw. This is good in multiple instances and lots of places. These straws, it's literally a straw you hang around your neck. They're $19 a piece. Sometimes they say buy one for each person in the home. That's a great idea. They come in 3 and 5 packs, I think. The life straw is a great product. You can go to I know somebody that's gone to a water puddle on an oil field site and drank out of it with their life straw, and it tasted just fine. The life straw will let you go to a creek, a pond, any kind of water, put the life straw in it, put your face down there and get a drink. They have a couple other models that have a long straw on them. They even have one with a pump, I think, that'll fill up a gallon jug or something. So they have options on the life straws. Life Straw is a great company. For every straw you buy, they'll give an individual in a foreign country that needs water filtration a free life straw. So they're very benevolent minded company. Those are options for water. Obviously, if you're in a rural area, you might have a well. Some considerations to think about on wells, though, are we all know they take electricity to pump them. So do you have a solar way to pump a well? Do you have a manual pump? They make hand pumps that will go in your well cap or go down your well casing. So you need to think about those options. Or do you have stored water in your pressure tank? How big is your pressure tank? How much water is stored there? Do I have a generator? Can I generate my own electricity so I can pump my well? Those are all considerations that you need to think about. Obviously, solar is a great option for water pumping, except when you need water at night. So you have to, again, make some preparations for that as well. Let's talk about a basic, always ready kit. Remember, that's what we're talking about, the 2-week kit. Let's talk about communication methods real quick. This doesn't have to be anything fancy. This can be something as simple as, hey, so-and-so, I check in with you 2 times a week at 7 p.m. on Tuesdays and Fridays. And if you haven't heard from me on a Tuesday or a Friday at 7 p.m., come looking for me, something's wrong. That can be something as simple as that, as a regular schedule and someone that you check in with. And if you don't check in, hey, come look for me, something's happened, something's wrong. That's a super great and a simple thing to have set up. And we talk about communication methods. What if cell towers don't work? What if for some reason technology has stopped functioning, a solar flare or something like this has happened? You need some old ways of communicating with folks. There's also portable radios, the GPRS radios, MURS radios. There's some at Walmart that are good for several miles. If you have family that live close by, sometimes those little $49 radios are enough that you can communicate with each other or a group of friends. A ham radio is something that requires a license, but if you're going to transmit, if you're just going to listen, a ham radio is a good choice to hear what's going on around you. Typically ham operators in an emergency situation, that's when they go to work. That's what they're there for, is to go and pass information from different agencies out into the public and get it distributed. And they practice this, and they have battery backups and generators and things. So a way to listen to the ham network or the ham operators out there is not a bad deal. Also, a private 2-way radio setup is an option. If you know someone that has a repeater and a group of friends that you all want to communicate with each other and be able to listen to ham on the same units, that is definitely an option, and we have that with our group of friends at Hopeton Church. We have the access to something like that, and a class that you could even get ham certified and become a ham operator if you want to. So there's all kinds of communication methods out there, something as basic as check-in to something as advanced as becoming a ham radio operator, and everything in between. But you need to have something in place as a part of your basic always ready kit. Basic first aid supplies, I don't think we need to talk a lot about that. Some extra fuel, whether it's for your car or for your generator, that's just not a bad thing to have around. That is one of the first things that could come in shortage if there was some event that happened. And then the personal protective equipment, that's the last thing. We can talk about that real quick. There's all kinds of choices. When COVID first came out, you couldn't get personal protective equipment to save your life, and now you can have it here by Monday, January 4th. So if you want a Tyvek suit, if you want goggles, if you want a mask, or if you want all of it, you can get that off Amazon and 100 other places. It's in good supply now. So there's no shortages on PPE at this time, and this would be a good time to buy a little if you don't have any. If there was some kind of virus event going on, at least one set of PPE for each person in your home would be a great thing to have in your always ready kit. And remember, we're talking about a basic kit, 2 weeks worth of these things. It's just a good idea. Some folks are going to prepare way past this. They're going to have 2 years worth of these items, or an indefinite supply. That's going completely to the other end of the spectrum. There's nothing wrong with that. Those are friends you want to have. But this is just a primer on how to get started and what should I have if I don't have anything. Get the basic always ready kit. Have your ARK ready. Next up, we're going to talk about a go bag. One of the final things we want to talk about in this little video series is a go bag. What is a go bag? Well, some people talk about having them in your house, or if you had to leave your home in a short order or a quick amount of time, it had to go, so it's a go bag. Um, I use them a little bit differently. I have my ARK in my house, and our go bags are typically in our vehicles unless there's some other event going on that makes us think we wouldn't use our vehicles. But each vehicle has a go bag, and it has these items for everyone for the contents of that vehicle. So if that's a 2-passenger car, a 4, a 6, a 7, an 8, a 15, your go bag is going to have these items for that number of people or that occupancy of that vehicle. And that's just a good rule of thumb and a good thing to have. And I know that if I can get to any one of my vehicles, these items are there in my go bag. What's a go bag? 3 days typically. 3 days of food. We talked about that in our ARK already. 3 days of water or water filtration. We've already talked about that. Your life straws, your things like that are, it's hard to store a lot of water in a bag in your car and keep it fresh. So probably a life straw is a good choice here. Medication. So if you take regular medication, save off some, have the doctor prescribe you some extra, whatever you got to do, but have a little extra in your go bags. Communication method, we've already talked about those. That might be a little handheld radio or a handheld scanner where you can at least listen to communications around you. This one's a little new or odd for some folks, but some American currency, have some dollars in there, and maybe some silver coins or some silver bars. If you had to barter and American currency wasn't any good, whatever was going on, that's not a bad thing. Silver is a good choice. It's pretty cheap. It's easy to, gold bars would be very expensive. So silver is an option. A few basic tools, some kind of a Leatherman or a multifunction tool, a hand tool or something would be a good thing to have in this bag. Some keep warm products, some thermal blankets, some hand warmers, some things that would help you keep warm in a cold situation. 2 lights, and preferably solar rechargeable. Why 2? Well, if you were out on a road on a cold night and your car slid off the road, and maybe it slid down in an area that's hard to find, or maybe there's several passengers hurt in your vehicle, if you could get one light on for you to help you see what's going on, maybe you could put one up in the roadway and turn it on, and go back and tend to the folks in your vehicle, or get in a safe spot or get out of the cold. But you need one to navigate around the vehicle, and maybe you could use the second one for signaling or to get some help. Just having 2 lights is just a good thing to do. And we, in this day and age, again, say PPE for everyone in the vehicle. Have some personal protective gear, a mask, some gloves, some goggles, whatever it is that you think you need. Have that, and you pack this bag and you keep it in your vehicle, a go bag. You can also, some people keep them by their back door. They have a spot in their house where they know their go bags are. Everyone knows that if they have to leave the home and they're fleeing for some reason, everyone grabs their go bag and they pack their go bags by person so that each person in the home goes and gets their go bag. That's another way to do this. And none of these things that we're talking about in this video, I don't think there's any rights or wrongs. It's just things to consider, things to talk about with your family, and figure out what best fits your family when you're talking about getting your basic ARK ready and having a go bag of some sort. So these are just considerations or suggestions, or maybe to help promote some conversation in your family talking about this type of thing. One last section on this video, we'll cover it in just a minute. Okay, so we've talked about our ARK, our Always Ready kit. That's that 2-week kit, a basic 2-week kit for your family. We've talked about a go bag, and in that process we've talked about water filtration, water storage, just the very tip of the iceberg on that discussion. We've talked about dried foods, canned foods, freeze-dried, dried goods, and again, we hit the tip of the iceberg on that discussion. And we've talked about communications, radio, ham, GPRS. We just tipped the edge of the the iceberg on that discussion, each of these topics, I think that we could spend 30-45 minute videos on each one of them, but we're trying to keep this short and to the point. The final section of this video is, well, what if I have done some of these things, but I want to take it further? And I think those are some short things that we could talk about, or add some options to our Always Ready kit. Adding length to your 2 weeks, that's a great thing to do. So, you know, being able to go for a month or two with all those items in your Always Ready kit, that's probably a next step. A next step past that would be to expand what's in your kit, what's in your Always Ready, and then it may not become so much a kit, but more of a way of life. I think one of the way of life items that I talked about was rotating your food in your food storage. And maybe for some of you, it's just having a food storage. You know, you need to have, as a way of life, a pantry. And in your pantry, have several months worth of food. And as you go to the store and buy things, you put the new things at the back and you use off the front. These are things that you do as a way of life, doing long-term Always Ready. Instead of an Always Ready kit, it's just an Always Ready lifestyle. So that's something that you may want to develop, is more of a pantry and some more food storage in your home. The types of foods that you eat, sometimes there's other sources for different things. We cook a lot with dried onions. Instead of chopping onions all the time, we just have dried onions in cans and in long-term storage, and we just use out of that, and we replace it as we use it. And so we've learned to cook with our dried goods and our freeze-dried goods. We've learned to use those and replace them as we use out of them, because there is a little bit of a different method of cooking when you're cooking with dried foods. There's different ways to do it, different ways to cook, and it tastes a little different, and the recipes are a little different. So that's, again, a way of life choice. Instead of it being an Always Ready kit for a period of time, it's just something we're doing perpetually. One other area that we probably have in our home is, you know, generators, batteries, battery backup. That's, again, a way of life. That's a choice. A generator's not cheap. That's something that you have to choose to do, save up for, and that's just something that long term, being able to know that your power is going to be on is a wonderful peace of mind type option, but it's expensive and it requires maintenance and, you know, fuel, and there's all kinds of considerations for keeping and upkeeping a generator. A lot of the little generators that Generac and the different electricians are selling, they're for like an overnight situation where a storm knocks the power out to OG&E gets there. They're really not made to run long term for 21 days or anything like that. Some of those home units are rated for 21 days. What you need to investigate when you're looking at a home generator is, what's its duty cycle? What was it built to do? Is it built to run 10 hours, 12 hours and till the power is back on? Or was it built to go for a month and run our home for a month? Those are things you need to look into if you're going to look into the investment of a generator. Batteries are another choice. Obviously, you're not going to have batteries that'll go 21 days. But there are some battery technologies out there now that'll run your home for 10 or 12 hours, 14 hours. Some folks are getting more than that out of batteries, and they have a lot of batteries. They'll have 2 or 3 days worth of batteries, but that's about the max you're going to be able to go with battery technology. But batteries are a choice. There's some batteries out there that will power, they're big enough, and there's inverters that are big enough that will power most of everything in your home, including a small air conditioner. So those are all considerations, and again, we could have hours and hour-long videos on each of these topics. I hope this has been just a primer, a food for thought type video. We may or may not go into more detail on other videos later, but I hope these items have at least piqued or started some discussion in your home, and you've evaluated your Always Ready kit, your go bag, or maybe your way of life or your lifestyle, your preparedness lifestyle in your home. And if you have questions or comments or anything like that, feel free to hit me up. There's a pretty good group of folks in Hopeton Church that live the Always Ready lifestyle. So if you want advice or anything on that, there's someone in one of those groups somewhere that's the expert on one of these topics, I promise you. So anyway, hope this video has helped, and have a happy new year.